I kicked myself for years and years and years. Go, no, I don't. But as soon as, 30, 45 seconds improvement over 12 months, I said, "Well, that's the first thing that anyone can do in their swim if it's not that strong is get a video analysis from a good coach."
That Triathlon Show 135. Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of That Triathlon Show, the podcast presented by scientifictriathlon.com. I'm your host, Michael, and today's episode is another case study, this time with Australian age grouper Brett Amos, 47. Among other things, we get into the value of getting a swim video analysis done, of joining a swim squad, and of getting a triathlon coach. So those are three very big things that made a big difference in Brett's progression over the last 7 years or so that he's been doing triathlons. And it is kind of funny that this episode comes close off the back of my interview with Paul Newsome from Swim Smooth, because that is, it was Paul who did the video analysis for Brett, and Swim Smooth is the squad that Brett swims with. But actually, Brett sent me an email before I even interviewed Paul, although, as I've said, I had been discussing with Paul for quite some time of bringing him on, but completely independent of that, Brett sent me an email and told me that he would be volunteer for being a case study on the podcast. So it's a funny coincidence, nothing more. But hey, maybe I should still ask Swim Smooth to sponsor the podcast, because Brett does a good job of praising them and bringing them some free marketing in this episode, which is well deserved, I think. And speaking of sponsors, this episode is sponsored by Precision Hydration, and I have to once again praise their blog, which is one of the best endurance sports blog out there, I think. And one post that I recently came across that I really enjoyed was titled, "Should You Really Just Drink Water to First?" And to make a long story short, because it is quite a long story, what it boils down to is if you race short, and actually this could go for water electrolyte fluid more so than water. If you're racing short distances in moderate temperatures, then sure, you can drink water to first. That's what Precision Hydration recommends usually. But in long distances and in hot and humid climates, or if at least one of those conditions apply, then that's not necessarily good enough. It depends on your sweat sodium content, your sweat rate, and those are things that are dependent on genetics and all sorts of things really, diet, etc. Which is why Precision Hydration has their free online sweat test that you can use to learn roughly how much sodium you need to replace, and that in turn will determine how much you should drink and at what sodium concentration. So you can click the link in the episode description or in the show notes to go directly to that free online sweat test. You can find it on precisionhydration.com. And if you order any electrolyte products, you can use the promo code ThatTriathlonShow, all one word, all caps, and that will give you your first box or tube of electrolyte for free. And I've had so many listeners email me and thank me for introducing them to Precision Hydration that I really hope that you are the next one, because this is a product that is really making a difference for triathletes out there, which is why they are a sponsor of this podcast. All right, now on with the interview with Brett Amos. Okay, so I have Brett with me here. Brett, how are you tonight? It's getting late there in Australia, I guess.
Yep, all dad duties are done. Time for relaxing.
Yeah, and podcasting.
Yes.
So this is it's going to be an interesting case study, I'm sure. So let's just dive into it with some basic facts, like how old are you and where do you live?
Right, I'm 47, live in Perth in Western Australia. I've got 4 teenage kids, all wanting Uber dad everywhere. Background is sort of mountain biking, and got into triathlon when I was about 40, so 47 now, so 7 years.
And what about career? What do you do for a living?
Yeah, actually, work in laboratory, run the laboratory there, the R and the research and development labs there. Make sure everything's a-okay there. More do the paperwork side of things than the actual lab work.
Perfect. And 47, been in triathlon for 7 years. What's your current level as a triathlete, would you say?
Probably just a bit under 5 hours now on a half Ironman, sort of about around about the 450,
Yeah.
4 hours 50. Yeah.
And when you got started, you got into it from mountain biking. How did that happen? Tell us a bit more about how you got into it in the first place.
Yeah, I was doing mountain biking a lot, and to get to the good trails, it sort of took an hour and a half to get out there, and it was sort of getting a bit not boring, but just time consuming to get out there. So I thought I'll try triathlon. So I started I think it was an Enticer triathlon, which is 250-meter swim. I think it's a 10K bike ride and a 2K run. Got into that, and yeah, thought maybe I just do a bit of a swim in the pool beforehand. I think 5 laps is easy, and I had a strong mountain biking background. I thought I'd just blast it on the straights there in the short 10K. How hard could it be? And running, how hard was that? So yeah, my first Enticer one was I almost drowned. First 50 metres, I did freestyle and just blew up and breaststroke to the rest. Got on the bike. I had a mountain bike. I think it was the only one in transition. All the rest were these fancy, back then I didn't know what they were, the tri bikes with their aero bars and that. And I said, I'll blast them away. And yeah, now I know that aero's everything. Yeah, and that's how I got into it. I just got the bug then and just kept progressing to longer distances.
And what was the progression like from there? How long did it take you? Like how soon did you move up distances, and how quickly do you start to progress and ramp up your training?
I probably did a couple of enticers because I just couldn't really swim, and I was just like, right, take it easy. So I probably do enticer distance, and then I was getting a little bit confident with the swimming. So I went up to the sprint distances, which is probably double that distance, and that probably took maybe 6 months to get to that stage. Um, but yeah, it was all a learning curve. Still was on the mountain bike, really embarrassed because you take it into transition and everyone's looking at you saying, this guy's crazy on his mountain bike. And then basically progressed from there, started liking it heaps. So then I thought, no, I'll go buy a tri bike and started upgrading that way.
And but you were training yourself. How did you structure your training, and how did you kind of did you have any idea what you were doing, why you were doing it, or was it kind of random?
It was very random. It was inconsistent. I might have 1 or 2 sessions during the week, and then, blast myself on Saturday and Sunday and do like 5 or 6 hours on the weekend. I was only probably training 5 or 6 hours back then, not getting any progression. And I was thinking, maybe I might have to do more volume or something like that. But yeah, from week to week, it might be 8 hours, 2 hours, nothing, and thinking that, just to blast it at the end and I get, heaps of fitness a week out before a race.
Did you find that your swim and run were still progressing because you hadn't done that, whereas your biking was kind of stagnant, or was it all the same, really stagnating pretty quickly?
Yeah, the bike was improving. Just getting used to being on a tri bike. I mean, when you come from a mountain biking background, you've got the wide bars, and you're trying to get on those aero bars, and it's pretty hairy, scary when you first start to try and get used to balancing on it. Picked that up quite well. That was progressing, but it was more the swimming, the running. I just ran, but with the swimming, I was absolutely hopeless. I think. When my first one on, I was probably swimming about 2 minutes 30 per 100, and didn't really progress there. And I know you had Paul Newsom on a couple of episodes before. One of the guys said, "Well, why don't you get a swimming lesson with this guy, a one-to-one video analysis?" And I didn't know who this guy was. I said, oh, okay, I'll just rock up and say, how you going, Paul? And he said, right, we'll jump in the pool and I'll video you and we'll have a look. And just seeing yourself swim, you just shook your head, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a crossover, and you pull through his going, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't know what's going on. So he said, look, here's 2 drills, just do them, and that should get you on track. And they were 2 simple drills. Did them for about 6 months and dropped from, say, 2 minutes 30 to probably 2 minutes per 100. And yeah, so I was happy with that. And then just
And
basically
how long had
stagnated.
you been swimming now at this point before you
Ah,
saw Paul and got the video analysis?
probably swimming for only about 6 months, 6 or 8 months. I was
Okay,
just getting frustrated. Yeah,
yeah.
so I thought, no, I'll go and see him.
But that just
Um,
shows you, and because that's why I want to highlight this, that you were swimming for 6 months, and maybe you were improving your endurance. You could sustain that 230 pace, but not really getting faster, and then you go and do that investment in a video analysis, and then you suddenly drop 30 seconds, not suddenly, but with consistent work, you drop 30 seconds per 100, which is an insane amount of time to drop. So that's great.
yeah.
What about your run? What
That's
was sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just saying with the swimming. Paul basically the 2 drills that he got me to stop me from crossing over was it was like a Barocca or a vitamin tube, an empty tube, like a baton. And he'd say, look, hold it out and then kick 6 times and grab it, swap it over, and it's like his 616 kick drill.
Yeah.
And back then I didn't know what that was for. Now I know it's just to help your alignment and not crossing over. And yeah, within 4 or 5 months it stopped the crossover, which was I thought, okay, hold this vitamin tube and it fixes it, and it did. So
Brilliant. What about your run, so that we have your base, or even if your run and your bike, when you did your sprint triathlons after you had gotten used to your tri bike, what kind of times were you doing at that point, and what was your run and bike split?
yeah, probably running on average back then, probably about 5 minutes 45 per k off the bike. Um, and the bike splits is probably averaging around about 30, 31 kilometres an hour. So whatever time that equates to over the distance, pretty consistent. Just we're talking sprint distance tries.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. So the next step then was, did you step up the distance pretty soon, or where did you go from there?
yeah, I was doing the sprints, and then I thought, no, let's pick it up to do the Olympic distance. And again, I think the first Olympic distance I did, I got over the line in about 3 hours, which back now I know that's pretty slow. Again, it was just the swim, getting used to the bike, and then running off the bike. Again, the swim. I think when I did my first Olympic distance, I got out of the water second last. I look back and there's this lady, I'd say easy in her late 50s, early 60s behind me. And I just had the shits big time getting into transition going, that's all right, I'll make up the time when I get on my bike. I gotta make it up. I can't come last. And then that's back then I went for another video analysis, but the running, no consistency. So I was still sort of running at about a 5:45 pace per kilometre.
And would you say that was the consistency there really the whole time the biggest issue with your training, or was there something else that you did wrong that
Yeah,
you know in hindsight?
yeah. I think it was just being inconsistent. I might have had 10 hours a week, 1 week, and then 5 the next, and then blast it and do 15. No structure in it. Just let's go out on the bike and ride for 3 hours. No hitting power numbers or anything like that. Just, I've got to ride for 3 hours, and bust my gut. And yeah, it just didn't work. When I finished that Olympic distance, that's when I stepped up to the half Ironmans, and then I thought, oh, it's not working for me, so I'm going to have to actually get some sort of plan in place so I can actually survive it. And that's when I got Joe Friel's book, Your Best Triathlon. He's got some workouts in there, and I just followed the half Ironman workout there, and that's getting a little bit more consistency in those in that half Ironman, and got through it pretty well.
So, what was how long have you been in triathlon at this point when you decided to step up to the half distance?
I was probably in it for, I'd say, probably 2.5, 3 years.
Okay, yeah. That the Your Best Triathlon. I have that book myself and have read it, and I have even used one of the plans myself at one point. Between before I got my coach, I got a coach pretty soon when I switched from running to triathlon. But I had time to do a half a season without a coach, and I used one of those plans. And now knowing them, of course, having read through that book, they're challenging. They're quite big volume, and so that's pretty good
Yeah,
that you at that point, still being kind of a beginner, managed to get through those that half iron plan.
yeah. I think it also holds you to be accountable because it's in the training plan. You go, oh, I've got to do it, I've got to do it. Before, when you didn't have anything, it was like, oh, I'll just skip that one. I can't be asked, or it's wet, or no, I can't get up. But when it's in the plan, I think it's more of a motivation. Like, okay, I've got this bike session to do. It's this. I've got to get up. I've got to do it. So I think it basically having a plan there that, and develop some consistency as well helped.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree that one of the biggest benefits of having a plan is more than the plan itself. It's that accountability and consistency that you get. So how did you then get on with that first half distance?
I probably hit around maybe 5.5 hours. Did probably two or three of them, and still was doing about 5.5 hours. I wasn't actually progressing or getting quicker because I was just still inconsistent, but a lot of low hours in the plan. I think the minimum in his book was, I think, 10 hours, and I was only getting anywhere between 7 to 9 hours. And I think, I was just at that stage where, you might have a week that's inconsistent and try and make it up, which is probably not the best thing to do.
Yeah, and so you did a few of them. How many did you do?
Going off that book, I probably did, I think it was about three or four half Ironmans with that plan, and then
Over what
I
time
did
period
them, and then
was that?
probably the four that I did was probably did two a year, so it was over a 2 year period at that distance.
Okay, and then the next target was the Ironman.
Yeah, the Ironman, and just grabbed that book and did the Ironman training plan there, and barely survived. I did two and barely survived. I'm just only doing 7 or 8 hours a week to get through it. I did it just on 12 hours, but yeah, it didn't feel good coming across the finish line, whether it's nutrition or pacing or whatever. I just after I did those two, I thought, no, I think the 70.3s were the distance that I liked the best. And plus, it was a lot of training, especially on the weekends, and you sort of lose a bit of touch with the family as well when you're coming closer to the race time.
Yeah, yeah. So you now have returned to focusing on 70.3s, and your training
Yep.
has changed quite a bit now since after those Ironmans. What did you do exactly?
Yeah, I basically I set a goal. I'd be almost 2 years ago to qualify for the World Championships, the half Ironman. And I thought, right, okay, let's get serious about this, and followed Joe's book to the T for the first 12 months, and was probably doing maybe up to 15 hours a week, and times were probably 5 hours. So I chopped off 30 minutes, just being consistent and actually not missing any workouts at all. Um, Picking up yoga, strength training, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, 30 minutes, I went, wow. And then I couldn't break under 5 hours. And I was the coach and the athlete, and I think I was a bit biased, on the workouts that I reckon were doing it. And I was doing the same thing in his book and wasn't mixing it up. So that's when I reckon about 12 months ago, I got I hired a coach, and yeah, I've hit under 5 hours now, which is great.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good point as well. You had followed this plan now, although you started following it to the T, so it was a bit different, but it's still the same plan. So, however good a plan is, if you follow it a certain amount of times, then it's going to be less effective because your body's already used to that type of training. So it's comes time to maybe mix things up at some point. So.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, so the coach, let's plug him here, give him a shout out. Who is your coach?
Sarah Hunter. She's a duathlon, so she's good at very strong at cycling and running. Because I was pretty right with the swimming and with Paul and all that in the swim squad. Yeah,
So,
and
so
she's
let's clarify that for the listeners if that's not clear. You are swimming now with the Swim Smooth squad.
yes,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah, it took me probably, I don't know, years and years to get the guts up to actually, because I was doing a lot of solo swimming, so it took a fair while, probably 2 years to get the guts up to go to the squad when I made that goal that, look, I want to go to the World Championship. I want to, start ramping the swimming up. So, I rocked up down the swim squad and the swim smooth guys, and I was freaking out. I'm thinking, I was intimidated because these guys are swimming, 115 for hundreds and all that. And I got out of the pool and I said, what am I worried about? So yeah, the rest is history. I've been swimming them for the last 2 years, and it's I've improved so much. I think I'm swimming around about the 135 to 140 mark now. So really happy with that.
Yeah,
But yeah, the training with Sarah's. Yep.
sorry,
Sorry,
no,
Mike.
go on. Training with Sarah is.
Oh yeah, training with Sarah was quite. I think I was a bit pig-headed following the plan, and as you said, doing the same thing, and you'd stagnate. And I go, no, I've just got to go harder. And then I thought, no, I can't distinguish between the athlete and the coach. So I sort of had a chat to her, and yeah, she sort of did things differently. I'm actually training slightly less, but my times are getting faster, which I'll take that any day.
So how did your training change specifically?
Because when I was doing Joe Friel's one, they got it in the 4 week block where you slowly ramp up your hours per week until you got to max out in the third week, and then you sort of have a rest and test week on the fourth week in that month. I think Sarah sort of mixed it around where it's the first week is quite a lot, and then it sort of ramps down. I don't know whether that's physiological or a mental side, but it seems to work for me. So I said, right, okay, I'll stick with that.
Yeah, so you sent me the table. It's really interesting. So, for example, you might have 15 hours the first week, then 12, then 10, and then 8, and then you restart at
Yep.
15, 12. So, yeah, really interesting. Interesting approach. And what about the content of the workouts? What type of training do you do? Let's say if you build up for a race.
You're building up for a race. You probably have always doing strength training sort of on a Monday, then sort of a Tuesday. She'll have a fairly easy bike, sort of a zone 2 type ride. We have probably Wednesday will be the main run session, and that will be the track work where you sort of a broken Ks, 200 meters, 400 meters, 200 meters type stuff. Then Thursday will be a pretty tough bike session. It'll be either a 20-minute sort of sweet spot training, or it'll be VO2 max where you sort of 2 minutes riding hard at VO2 and 5 minute rest, doing maybe 5 or 6 of them. And Friday's probably an easy cruisy run, and then we've got another session on the bike on Saturday, which will be, probably anywhere between 3 to 4 hours, where you've got maybe 20-minute intervals at a sort of a high zone 3 swim, and then on Sunday I've got a long run where long enduro one where she'll, depending on where we are in the training season, she'll throw in at the end of say an hour and a bit, some 1K race efforts. So I'm swearing at her by the time I've finished those sessions.
Would you say that the amount of intensity in your training has gone up or down compared to the Joe Friel plan?
Um, I'd say it's probably a mixture of both. There's a lot of easy stuff in there, but when they've got the main workouts, it's tough. You know, you're doing an hour of VO2, and you within that hour, you know, you warm up, you cool down, but the actual main session might be only like 20 to 30 minutes, if that. But you are gassed out after that hour, and it's a tough session.
Yeah. And the swim smooth squad, how often do you go to that? How many swims do you do per week?
I do two. Currently doing two now because it's sort of the off season. But I'll do three. I think Paul was explaining. I've got the endurance technique on the Tuesday night. Thursday night's the threshold, which is a really tough session. I never walk away saying, "Oh, that was easy." It's always totally gassed out after that. And then the long enduro one, sort of the red mist type set on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, yeah. So with this change, joining the squad and getting Sarah as your coach, what would you say to people? There are a lot of people obviously out there that are self-coached and maybe don't really know the benefits of coaching, whether it's this sort of on deck swim squad coaching that you got with Paul, or it's the programming side of things with Sarah. What would you tell people about the benefits that you've seen from coaching?
I think maybe when you're coming up to an A race, you can basically have a chat to the coach on what your plan is and whether they can say, yeah, look, I think that's okay, or I think you're a bit optimistic here, and things to look out for. Whereas you probably, you sort of got that fixed mindset, and they can just throw out a couple of things that you think about, go, oh, okay, just to keep you a bit honest on what you can actually do and what you think you can do. Yeah, and it's all this, especially with the coaches, the pacing awareness, especially in the swim. I think Paul was talking about tempo trainers and stuff like that in your previous podcast, and that's awesome when it's beeping every 25 minutes. It just keeps you at the right pace, and doing your first 100, you're in front by 3 or 4 seconds, and if you keep that up, you just gas yourself and you get really slow time. And that's probably taken me 12 months to get the pacing right. And if you hadn't had a coach and those tools that they've given you to do that, you'd probably be still, floundering around and, not pacing correctly. So I think just having that third party to give you some ideas that you haven't thought of is the major benefit.
Yeah, that's a good point about pacing. I think probably almost half of the workout reviews that I do have some sort of comment about the pacing, and whether it's that it was good or that there are things that can be improved on that pacing, because it's so important to get that right, and whether it's through positive reinforcement by encouraging the athlete, saying that they did a really good job with pacing this workout, or whether it's pointing out some things that they can do better next time. That's yeah, I totally agree that that's one of the most important things, and something that you easily neglect if you don't have that outside objective opinion looking at what you're doing. And
Yeah,
for
definitely.
your plan now for qualifying, do you have a timeline for that? And are there things that you're still looking to change or incorporate in your training or outside of your training to achieve that goal?
Yeah, because I want to qualify for the World Championships in France next. It was 2019. So I had a chat with the coach a couple of days ago and said, let's pick up the strength training, because I normally do it only once a week just for maintenance. It is the off season, so you're going to hit the gym, a couple of times a week. Really gotten seriously into the yoga because you're starting to get niggles from running and stuff like that. So we're going to sort of work on that and then build up a little bit of a running block in the next month or so, just to strengthen the run leg, and just maintaining bike and keeping the swims up, and see how that goes. If the times, especially with the running, increase, or should I say decrease.
Yeah, yeah. What do you have to do roughly? Do you know what you need to do for a time to qualify?
Yeah, I'm probably looking at the course in Western Australia here, Bustleton. Probably because it's a flat, fast course. I'm probably looking at probably a 420, 425 maybe.
Yeah, and you said
Currently at about a 450.
yeah. So where do you think that you'll what? How much will you do you plan on cutting from the swim, bike, and run legs, respectively?
I'm pretty much, we're talking about bang for a buck. I'm pretty much at the pointy end of the swim leg now, coming out of the swim. So I'm thinking, well, I could probably chop a minute or two out, but the amount of time I'd have to put in extra to chop that 1 or 2 minutes off probably is not as beneficial as doing extra biking or running where I could save more time there. Um, the bike is pretty good. I could probably chop off 5 minutes, but the run I could probably chop off 20 minutes because I'm running probably a 148. I could definitely chop out 20 minutes there. It's just a pacing thing, going too hard off the bike in the initial first 4 or 5 kilometres and just focusing on that.
Yeah,
That's where I can see the biggest gain.
yeah, okay. And so, how do you manage to fit in the training? We talked a little bit at the start about your job and your family. You have teenage daughters and etc. So how do you fit it all in?
Um, I basically do, I'd say 80% of my workouts first thing in the morning. So I call that the invisible training where I'm out, 4:45 in the morning, I'm up, I'm either, getting on my bike or running. And by the time I finish my session, I'm at home, a quick coffee, 10-minute chill time, and then get the kids up and to school or wherever they have to be. Because we've got 4 teenagers and it's just hectic. We've got a whiteboard all set up so we know who's doing the dinner tonight, who's doing the dishes, who's drying and putting away, so there's no arguments. I'm rostered on, so I know that the Tuesday night and the Thursday night I'm not rostered on, so I can actually do my swim workouts at Paul's sessions. So I've booked that in there. So that's the only way we can do it. Another way of saving some time, we've got these, they call it Hello Fresh. It's all veggies and meals done with color-coded bags, and you've got a recipe, and you basically grab the color-coded bag, look at the recipe, and then just cook for the family. So, and that's worked pretty well, so we don't have to worry about what the kids are going to cook and stuff like that. So that saved us a heap of time. I can just walk away and they have the dinner prepared in half an hour.
So it's organization on part of the entire family, really, and early mornings. That
Yeah,
in a nutshell.
pretty much. And smart training too. If I have to take one of my daughters to drama or stuff like that, it might be a few hours there, and I'll sneak in maybe an hour and a half swim and then come back and pick her up. Stuff like that. If I've got an opportunity where I have to just sit around waiting for them, I'll do a run or a swim or whatever it is just to get that session in.
Yeah.
That's sort of the only way you can get around it sometimes.
Yeah. So from where we are now and looking back at where you came from, what would you say, if you can give a few, however many you want really, but a few tips to age groupers listening to this that you've learned throughout the years through your own trial and error in triathlon?
First thing is get a one-to-one swimming video analysis. I kick myself for years and years and years, go, no, I don't. But as soon as, 30, 45 seconds improvement over 12 months, I said, well, that's the first thing that anyone can do in their swim if it's not that strong is get a video analysis from a good coach. I still kick myself thinking I should have done that years ago.
Is there anything else any other tips?
Any other tips? Basically consistency. And with consistency, make sure you're getting up, doing your workouts. If you miss one, that's okay too. Don't try and make it up. And small things like, practicing transition, that's free speed. It's like, how do you transition? How do you do a flying mount? How do you do a dismount? Get on the park where there's grass and try and practice it. Fall on the grass 2 or 3 times until you get it right. Save you some time there. Get a coach as well. They're worth every dollar invested. Um, yeah, and just basically read content from the web or podcasts, people with their own experiences, and just absorb it all. That's sort of what I've done.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But be careful with not getting shiny object syndrome with that, because there's a lot of reading you can do, and there are many ways to skin a cat. So, but one person cannot do all of the different things that potentially are good to do. So that's again where a coach, for example, can help filter it with you to do the things that you have time for, and that can give you the biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah,
Going back to that swim analysis, I think that even if you're really at the pointy end of swimming, it can be a really great thing to do. I'm going back to Finland in a couple of weeks myself, and I'm looking to do a swim analysis with a swim coach there that I know, a friend of mine actually, who has done swim analysis for me before. And I'm probably right now, I haven't raced due to my injury, but I'm going to race in a week, and I'm looking at getting close to 10 minutes probably for the sprint distance swim. And I still want to do that swim analysis because I think there's so much I can improve in my strokes. I want to do that regularly, and since this guy has done it for me before, I'm going to do that, and hopefully that can help me shave a couple of seconds when I implement some of the things that I learned from that. So it's not a one and done. It's something that you want to do every now and then, and no matter your level, you can always improve your swimming unless you're someone like Michael Phelps. So it's definitely something that I totally agree on. And actually, one more thing, I recently I've had a couple of training events and a training camp, and one of the things, and I've done swim analysis for the athletes there, and that's in their feedback when they tell me what they enjoyed the most and learned the most. The swim analysis is usually one of the big things that they pick up on.
yeah, it's awesome. You see yourself swimming, especially when you're sort of picking up the speed, and you think, "Oh, I don't think I can shave any more time off." And then I think it was about 12 months ago, Paul did a one-to-one, and I said, "Oh, I'm not too sure what I'm doing wrong." And you just look at the video now, so you go, "Oh, is that it?" And then straight away it clicks a penny, and then you get a couple of seconds after 2 or 3 months, you're building up those, the quicker pace. So it's awesome feedback to see yourself swim.
Yeah, yeah. And one more question before we get into the rapid fire questions. Are there some things related to training or racing that you find that have worked for you really well? Like, for example, do you find that a certain type of training, like let's say sweet spot training or VO2 max training, is something that you respond to really well? And some things like that you can mention in whatever of the disciplines or all of the disciplines if you want to. Some things that have worked well for you, basically.
Yeah, I think the sweet spot training works well. That'll be on the long ride on a Saturday. It's a 3.5 4 hour ride. It's a pretty long ride. I mean, you're in mostly in zone two, which is your sort of recovery, and then you're like a 20-minute sweet spot. Um, and it slowly creeps up on you. You might only do three by 20 minutes with the rest in between, or the zone two. But it does creep up on you, and after you've finished, you know you've done that workout, and yeah, you can actually see after a sort of a month or so that session there is actually quite a powerful session, giving you that, I don't, not so much more speed, but just less fatiguing. You're not fatigued as much every time you do that workout.
Yeah.
And I think the best workout for the swim would be the threshold, because you're redlining pretty much all the way to sustain like a race pace, especially in a half Ironman, the 1.9 kilometres, and it feels like you're in a race too, even though you're getting, 10, 5, 15 seconds break at a 200 or 300 metre, it still feels like you're racing for the whole entire hour. And I see that's improved my swimming as well. Just, I think, for the feel of what a race is, because you go there every Thursday, it feels like race pace, and you just get the feeling of what it will be when you're on there at race day, and that's good as well.
And on the run, now that we have some favorites of yours on the bike and swim, is there something that you found helpful on the run?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of just the steady state long runs, and when I got my coach, he got me doing some track work. They're like the 200s and 400s where you got a high cadence, you're running quite quickly, and even barefoot running, actually taking your shoes and socks off and actually running on the grass. And she said, just feel your feet on the grass and I don't know, maybe psychologically I think I'm running easy. I don't know. But I find it a little bit easier, especially on the longer runs, that they don't seem as hard. Whether that's just psychological, but I think that's the only thing I've done different in the running is doing some track work or speed work, 2 4s, 800 meters.
Yeah, no, but that's so important to do that. And that's something that I think a lot of triathletes don't do. Most recreational runners will do that naturally, even though they are not coached. But it's something that hasn't, I guess, broken through the same way to the triathlon community. But no, I totally agree with you. So let's move into the rapid fire questions here. You are a listener, of course, so you know how this works.
Yep.
What's your favorite book, blog, or resource related to triathlon?
I'd be Joe Friel's Your Best Triathlon, and a website I've just come across is examine.com. It's a nutrition website. It's all science backed, and it basically debunks any of the mainstream media of one of them was, does bacon cause cancer, and they'll go to the nitty gritty and give you the takeaway points of what actually the study was. That's quite a good website, that one.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And Stefan Guyene, who was on the show in a past episode talking about the hungry brain, he's one of the reviewers of that site. So it's
Okay.
really, there are some really smart people that put those things together. So yeah, I totally dig that site as well. What's a personal habit that's helped you achieve success?
Consistency, I think, is the main one, and routine.
And what do you wish you had known or wish you had done differently at some point in your triathlon journey?
Oh, get a swimming lesson, a one-to-one video analysis. That's the main one.
Brilliant. All right, Brett, this has been really, really good talking with you. I really enjoyed it, and I think that a lot of listeners can probably relate to some of the things that we've been discussing, from how you went from just starting out to now trying to qualify for the World Championships. And good luck with that, by the way.
Thanks very much.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview with Brett. As I've said quite a few times, I'm still kind of experimenting with these case studies, so I'm really curious to hear your feedback. Definitely send me an email to michael@scientifictriathlon.com and tell me what you think of these case studies. And if you want to be a case study yourself, then email me as well. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You do not have to be a semi-professional triathlete by any means. If you're a complete beginner, that is just as fine. But I want to have athletes from all walks of life be case studies once I get a library of these built up, so to say. And links to all the related episodes, related first of all to other case studies, will be in the show notes and in the episode description. I'll also link to the interview with Paul Newsome. It was episodes 132 and 33, a 2-part interview. And for reference, the previous case studies were 130, which was called How David Qualified for Kona by Training Smarter and Getting the Details Right, and episode 124, which was called Age Group Triathlon Case Study with Jordan and Jesse Sorik. I didn't have a catchy title for that, so that was a bit of a fail, but I hope that you will enjoy the episode anyway. Alright, so the key takeaways from me from this case study with Brett were definitely that he invested in swim analysis, in joining a swim squad, and in getting a triathlon coach, and that is what has helped him progress to the level where he's now trying to qualify for Worlds. And those are the best investments you can make, the kind of investments that many triathletes don't make because you can't touch them, like you can't touch a bike wheel or a new shiny helmet or a new computer or other gadget, but they are the ones that will make you go faster and by a large margin when you compare the return on investment compared to any gadget or tool or tangible thing that you can buy. So I really think that that's worth hammering home, and I'm a bit biased here, of course, as a coach myself. But I'm also an athlete, and I am coached, and I've seen this in my own athletic career as well. So definitely consider that your best investments will not be the gadgets and the tangibles, but they will be the investments that you make in yourself, like that swim analysis, like joining that swim squad, and like getting a triathlon coach. Some news, pretty exciting news as well, is that I have tried to fix some dates for training camps for the autumn in Algarve in Portugal, southern Portugal, which is brilliant. I had a first test run of this in May, so now it's all systems go, and I just need to finalize the dates. And I have two options, basically. It's either mid-September or early September, or it's late October. And you can still impact when I will have my autumn 2018 training camp. Send me an email to michael@scientifictriathlon.com, and that's Michael with a K, and let me know what your preference is. I have a web page up on scientifictriathlon.com. In the menu, you can now find a page called Training Camps. It's under Services, so check that out for all the details, pictures. There are a lot of details there, and I'll also link to it in the episode description, absolutely, so you can learn more about what these training camps will be about. But it's a week-long training camp, so it will be great, and I look forward to welcoming many listeners there, and hopefully coached athletes as well, so it will be a nice mix. The weather is brilliant, the food is brilliant, the cycling is outstanding, so smooth roads but no cars on them. You wouldn't believe that it's Europe, you would believe it's somewhere, I don't know where. So that is really exciting, and as I said, let me know when you would prefer these camps to be. On the next episode of the podcast, I will do a solo episode on the latest science on running form. There's a new, really big, really good study out that I'm going to reference there and talk a little bit about what we now know about running form. So look forward to that next Monday. Of course, there will be a beginner tip in the meantime on Thursday. And in the meantime, keep training smart and keep loving triathlon.